What is going up, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video. And today the Phoenix Suns held the official press conference for the new head coach, Jordan Ott. Now, getting into it, I feel like there's always a sense of optimism when there's a new change or there's a sensibility of, there's something new, and you're not one to just be like, man, this is not going to work out. So in terms of the takeaways from Jordan Ott's press conference today, I really liked what he showed, and aside from like his quotes, I think he's a great character. He seems like a guy that, he has like this quiet confidence about him. He's not here to prove anyone wrong he's not trying to prove a point, really. He's just trying to be the best head coach for the Phoenix Suns that he can be. That's kind of what I gathered away from this takeover or from the press conference today. But yeah, man, I like Jordan Ott a lot. I know my last video was about Jordan Ott and, the breaking of the news of the hiring. We still don't really know much about Jordan Ott, but we just kind of have a, more of a sensibility of who he is as a character, because he's just been sitting on, the benches for, being an assistant coach. He's just grinding it out. So, yeah, man, I'm excited. And I think that really all that matters outside of like, the X's and the O's and the schemes and, whatever the hell they plan to do on the court, I think the off the court stuff matters the most. If you can connect with the player and, any person has played any level of sports, whether it's freaking AAU, middle school, high school, varsity, freaking college, D1, D2, D3, or if you went pros overseas, if you have a coach that can connect with you, believe in you, and can just have a connection with you, and I think that means so much more than what you're doing in terms of X's and O's. You could be the smartest fucking coach in the world. You can have the best game plan, the best, schemes. But if you can't connect with your players, and have a good team morale, have a good locker room, none of that shit matters. You can throw that out the window. You need guys that can buy into what you're doing and what you're trying to build here in your locker room. You got to make sure that, these guys have big egos and stuff. The past couple seasons with Vogel and Budenholzer, they weren't able to, communicate the right way and kind of get their message across, even if it was the right message, across to the locker room. And I think that's what Jordan Ott can do. He talked about his abilities to connect with players and his other colleagues. So I'm really excited. We're yet to see what his assistant coaching staff is going to look like, since this is the first time in his career where he has a chance to build his own little coaching palette around him. So I'm excited. But yeah, I know someone asked the question about, the Michigan State connection and made a joke about the Phoenix Spartans, since, there's all the Michigan State ties within the Phoenix Suns franchise. And, Jordan Ott responded to that. And he didn't really take, fondly of that, little joke or message that the reporter asked. He told him straight up. He's like, I earned it. I earned the right to stay here. And, he's been in the basketball world for 20 years now.
There's been some jokes that they might rename the franchise the Phoenix Spartans with all the Michigan State ties. I was just wondering from your perspective how much that connection meant with Brian, with Matt, and what you think that brings to the table.
So I'll say it like this. I've earned the right to be here. I've spent 20 years of working as hard as I possibly can to be here in this spot. I've been around great people, great coaches, great players to allow me to grow, put me in tough spots to see if I can get better. So I know I've earned this opportunity. I'm going to work as hard as I can from here on out to prove that I am here for the right reasons and I've earned this opportunity. So that excites me. That excites me going forward.
And now he has, his first opportunity to be a head coach at the highest level that you could think of in terms of basketball. So in terms of, the Jordan Ott hiring, Brian Gregory said in the press conference that, they talked to a lot of current Suns players and players that played under Jordan Ott and just kind of asked questions about him, and that relatively led to the hiring of Jordan Ott.
Our players talked to some other players on other teams throughout the league, in terms of just a profile for what the successful head coach would look like in the NBA right now. And it was amazing how connected those answers were with, and I met with our young guys to our older guys. You know, players today want quality. They want to know that their head coach is a good guy, you know, that there's values and that they're going to be treated in a valuable way, not just them as players, but them as people. And the other people around the organization are treated that way by the head coach. They want substance. They want to know, as Jordan just said, that this guy knows what he's talking about and can help them grow as a player while also incorporating that growth into the success of a team. We have a Hall of Famer from the Suns organization that had a great line. He told me, substance commands the room now. And I took that to heart as going through this process. They want a coach who's honest. Players may not always like to hear what's being told, but they want an honest evaluation. And last but not least, they want standards. Guys want to know what's going to be expected of them, and they want to be held accountable, and they want everybody held accountable. So as we went through it, every time I went through this, that's Jordan Ott. That's the guy sitting right here. That's the guy that when I went through the characteristics with our current players, and as I said, players around the league, because I wanted a different perspective, that's exactly what we got.
Like I said in the last video, I had conversations with people that, you know, kind of knew Jordan a little bit and kind of knew like his ways within locker rooms and how he was able to connect with the players. He's the guy that has handshakes with, you know, has different handshakes with players, which, you know, you could take that with a grain of salt, but in some degree that matters. So that's kind of the biggest thing, and that's really just the biggest problem I think with the Phoenix Suns coaching in the past 2 years. They weren't able to connect with players, and you know, we have a little bit of a younger, modern head coach that understands what the NBA is like now and how these, you know, players operate. I know Jalen Bridges, Ryan Dunn, and Oso Iguodala and Royce O'Neal were all at the press conference today, so that's interesting. I'm not sure what Royce O'Neal's stance is with the Phoenix Suns, if they're going to look to trade him or if they're going to plan to keep him, but if he was at the press conference, I would assume that he's probably going to stay here, which I'm all for it. It seems like a lot of people, you know, signed off on Jordan Ott. You know, Devin Booker did as well. He gave the go-ahead, and I think that's the biggest thing. So, I mean, we had Mike Budenholzer last year, man, that, you know, told Devin Booker to be less vocal and let him run the show. And as a person that's played sports, or I guess, like, this is kind of common sense too, I guess. But if you're a franchise guy, the best player on your team, night in and night out, that, you know, buys into what the coach is doing and is buying into what that coach is bringing to the locker room, the 14 other players are going to follow. That's just how it's going to work. It's a chain reaction. And just like last year, Mike Budenholzer told Book to shut the hell up, pretty much. Be less vocal. That rubs off in the locker room in a certain way. Players don't buy into that. That it's just a chain reaction, and I think that's just the biggest thing. Same with Vogel too. You know, there's that Sham story that leaked. I think it was after like a Clippers game or whatever. The Suns were in the locker room, and you know, Vogel was just, he kind of had like an outburst, and the team wasn't taking it serious. Jordan just kind of seems like he's a quiet dude, but he kind of has this like chip on his shoulder. Just, I think he's gonna be able to connect with the guys, and I might seem very optimistic, but I'm not gonna knock the guy. Just, you know, we don't know what he's gonna do. We don't know. But just kind of based on what I've heard and what, you know, he kind of said today, I think he's gonna be good for the Phoenix Suns, and I'm excited to see what his career looks like under the Suns coaching position. So once again, Jordan Ott, welcome to the Phoenix Suns, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.
But I'm always going to bank on who I am as a person. That hasn't changed. I think if you ask around the people that I've been around, we're going to demand that you work. That's where it's going to start. I want them to know and believe that I'm going to help them. We, this place, we're going to help them. We're going to help them at every phase of their game. We're going to help develop them, get to a new level that they didn't think they could get to. And it's going to take all of us. So offensively playing faster, I think a way to look at it is playing earlier in the clock. We know the efficiency of offensive possessions, start high and they drop. So how often can we get a good look early in the possession? So we're going to play fast. We're going to move. And, the cutting piece is important. And then we're going to find ways to get extra possessions. So we're going to crash, find ways to get extra possessions because, we know how important it is to win the possession game. And then defensively, like BG mentioned, I want to play aggressive. We see it in the playoffs. We see exactly two teams that are at the end of the day in the finals, what aggressive defensive mentality does to the offense and how it impacts the offense. And then we're going to communicate. Defensively, it's so random. Offenses are becoming more conceptual. How we communicate, and then at the end of the day, defense needs effort. All-out effort all the time. Over time, it's the guys that have high character. This is a competitive league, and you have to trust that that player is going to do exactly what they say, or it doesn't work. So having high character is very important to me and to us.